Hello! I am Aoya Laipe, and I like to hop into top tier matches in War Thunder and then personally kill the entire enemy team by myself. Welcome to my channel. Alright, so today I'm going to show you exactly how to slaughter absolutely everyone in sight without dying with this jet. And this jet is the F-8 Crusader, named for a time in the distant past, where Western powers decided to fight a bunch of pointless wars in the Middle East. Yeah, I'm finally covering this jet. It's taken a while to get around to it, I'm not sure why. I used it in my position guide and for a decent chunk of my bullets guide, like way back when. But I've never properly covered the F-8 before, despite it being two of my 4 favorite planes. Yes, there are 2 main F-8 variants, the F-8U2 and the F-8E. I'm flying the F-8U2 here, but these 2 planes are practically identical. Not literally identical, just practically identical. You know, cool the angry comments. I'll swing back to this in a minute. Well, actually, it'll be more than a minute. That's for sure. Or actually, don't cool the angry comments. It'll boost my engagement stats. And speaking of comments, I'd like to thank my super thanksers. So I would like to give a thank you to Icy293 for his very generous $50 super thanks, as well as Russ Velger7193, APOC4, Rust Thunder, Snow Marie again, and of course Ducky Yandere, and all these other people too. Oh, and it's finally time to give a proper thank you to Wanderer Oxu for giving me 500 euros, so I'm gonna put his name right here under the Comic Sans kill counter. This is your video, buddy. I'm not sure where I found the best fans in the world, but I'm not complaining. Okay, but back to this awesome plane though. I love the F-8. I originally taught myself to play this game by playing the F-8 and the MiG-21 SR-13300. You know, I played this F-8 to death right before I started my channel. Then I got caught up playing, you know, all the other planes of the game, but this one here is still classic. It's still a favorite. Shooting everyone down with this thing is such a nostalgia trip for me. But basically, the MiG-21 was where I learned all the dirty, slippery bastard tactics. And the F-8 was where I learned how top-tier dogfighting and like energy management worked. So the secret sauce that makes the F-8 really good is easy to understand, but it can be tricky to understand how to actually use it, you know, how to apply it. The nutshell version is that the F-8 sits in a sweet spot where it can outrun anything it can't outturn, and it can outturn anything it can't outrun. In very basic terms, that's how you maneuver around with this plane. If you master the F-8, you will know when to run and when to turn, and that's an incredibly useful skill if you want to play top tier. From here on out, the details of how you turn and run and manage energy will change, but the core concepts will not. If you learn it on this plane, you'll get the core concepts. And the F-8 also does this while sitting at a battle rating where missiles are only just starting to get good. So you're not in a crazy high threat environment just yet. It's not like rank 7 or, God forbid, rank 8. This means that compared to almost any other plane I cover, you will have a lot more breathing room to turn and burn people without getting third-partied if you are in this jet. You still need to be careful, but rate fighting out in the open is not guaranteed to kill you. It's not guaranteed death. Also, in case you haven't noticed, you don't need to hug the ground or hide behind hills with this thing to survive. You can cruise way up into the sky and have a huge energy advantage if you want, and there's nothing wrong with that. At this battle rating, that's actually a fantastic idea. So this is the best plane you get if you want to practice when to rate fight, when to energy fight, or when to do something in between. Now, either way, once you actually get someone lined up, you have to kill them, and for that you need the weapons. The F-8 has 4 20mm cannons, which are arguably the best guns in the game. Gaijin lets me fly every plane in the game, and as far as I can tell, these are the best guns on any jet. I know it's subjective, but like these guns are just amazing, and I think they're the best. They hit hard, they fire fast, they reload very quickly because they're only 20mm, so in arcade to get the short gun reload, and they're also very accurate. Also, because there's 4 of the guns, they kind of give a little bit of the shotgun effect. So this plane will land shots on targets when other planes only have 1 gun would have made a narrow miss. This is also very fitting, the fact that it has good guns, because the F-8 was supposedly the last fighter jet designed with guns as its primary armament. However, the real selling point isn't actually the amazing guns, it's the missiles, the AIM-9Ds. If you're climbing the American tech tree, these are the first missiles you'll get that don't suck. Like the AIM-9Bs or whatever you're stuck with until then, those suck, but the AIM-9Ds are awesome. And the F-8 will probably be the first plane you get them on. And relative to their battle rating, the AIM-9Ds are very good missiles. They're rear aspect only, they're not all aspects, but they're very good for this battle rating. Overall, the F-8 has no weak spots, and that makes it extremely resistant to up tiers. You just change your tactics and play to different strengths if you're at a different battle rating. That's the reason why I will take extra care to target F-8s, even if they're like 2 or 3 battle ratings below me, because there's some random backup crew that someone brought to an arcade match. Like, if an F-8 player knows what he's doing, he will always be a threat, and they will always be hard to kill. I do not take that chance if I don't have to. If I see an F-8, it's dead. Now, rank 6 is where top tier really begins, like the mindset, the tactics, those all change very abruptly in arcade. They do also change in realistic, but it's a much more gradual change. In realistic, you have a learning curve instead of a learning cliff like you do in arcade. So rank 6 Air Arcade, where you can first fly the F8U2, is also where a lot of players start to really struggle with the game. And if you understand how players tend to struggle and the sort of problems and difficulties they tend to encounter when trying to get through rank 6 Air Arcade, then you can exploit that to kill them in really dirty bastard ways. I mean, you know where to stick the knives to kill them in ways that aren't really fair. And yes, I will show you how to do that. Or I guess you can't really call it unfair because TTA, Top Tier Arcade, has no rules, no honor, no mercy, which means everything is fair by definition. But first I need to explain how to kill good players, and then I can show you how to identify and exploit the weaknesses in the not so good players to expand your attack opportunities. Alright, so the guns, let's start with that. So, as I said, the guns are amazing and you'll be using them a lot. And the way you use them is you shoot people and then they die. If you are unsure how to shoot people, I have a guide on bullets. Go watch it. Now, as for the AIM-9Ds, I have not talked about these nearly as often on the channel. The AIM-9Ds have a little bit of flare resistance. So if you're fighting an alert player and you get a solid rear aspect shot on them from a kilometer away or less, it will almost certainly hit them even if they flare. If it's 2 kilometers away or less, it will probably hit them, but not almost certainly hit them. So whatever else I say in this video, if you have an opportunity to launch a missile at someone who is less than 1.5 kilometers away, do it. You stand a very, very high chance of killing them. Basically, if someone shoots an AIM-9D at you, you need to flare and turn. With most missiles at this battle rating, like, they'll just chase flares if you use a flare. And if you don't really have time to turn, you don't have time to escape the missile and you die. However, against unaware players or players who don't have flares, AIM-9Ds can hit them most of the time in a rear aspect shot from a maximum range of 4 kilometers. The reason I say most is that if someone is in a very fast plane, the range can often be knocked down to around 2 kilometers because the missile has to go further to hit a fast plane, so it's kind of like a stealth nerf to range. At this battle rating, an unusually fast plane basically means an F-104 or anything that kind of looks like an F-104, like such as a T-2. Like if you're shooting anything that looks like a pencil, your max range will be 30 to 50% less most of the time. Now, of course, max range is not ideal. You don't want to be taking 4-kilometer shots if you don't have to, like closer is better. But there are still some edge cases where you can juice a little bit of extra range out of your AIM-9Ds, and you've already seen 1 or 2 of them in the video, and you might have been confused why I'm taking shots from that far away. And the main edge case is if someone is slow, the missile does not have to go nearly as far to chase them down, so if someone's usually slow, you can kill them from a further range. And the second main edge case is if someone's in a turn. Now, the AIM-9D is a rear aspect missile, yes, but it doesn't have to be perfectly rear aspect. You can kind of get it in an angle, and if someone turns a little bit, it will still track them. And if they turn a little bit, or you fire it from a bit of an angle, bit off from the rear aspect, the missile will cut the corner a little bit, and that means it doesn't have to go as far. This also makes the missile extremely easy to flare, but if you're shooting a guy that doesn't have flares, that doesn't really matter. So great, now I finally get to tell you where to stick the knives. So if there's like a mess of enemy players and you want to know who is going to be not good enough to dodge your missiles so you can pick them off and kill them first, there are a few telltale signs that I look for, and you probably should as well. First, they're in a premium. Look, I don't know about realistic, but arcade is definitely a pay-to-lose game. 2, they're in a jet that is currently going slow. Slow planes don't really dodge missiles. 3, their jet doesn't have flares. Hard to flare a missile if you don't have flares. And number 4, if they're distracted fighting someone else. So if there's a fur ball in front of me and I have 4 missiles ready, I will launch them at the 4 players who meet the most of these criteria. And it's a pretty good way to figure out who's gonna suck and not know how to dodge your missile, and then they just die. Looking at these criteria probably leaves you with 2 big questions. So the first is, because these are rear aspect missiles, if there's like 6 people in front of you in some chaotic situation, it can be tricky to quickly know who is facing away from you so you can kill them with a missile. Like, it can be hard to figure out who you should shoot first. There's a really helpful shortcut for this. If you look at this number right here, the range to the enemy plane, the less that number is changing when you're looking at it, the more likely that guy is to be facing away from you. So if the number is doing this, you're almost certainly right behind that guy. If the number is instead doing this, you are almost certainly not right behind that guy, unless he is basically or literally stalled out. It's not perfect. There are edge cases where this will mislead you, but actually looking at the plane and seeing which way it's flying is of course better. But if it's pure chaos and you don't have time to do that, here's your shortcut that works like 99% of the time. The next question I'm sure a lot of you have is, if you're like, but there's a million planes and I'm new to this battle rating, so how do I know which ones have flares? And that's actually also pretty easy. There's a pretty useful rule of thumb for that as well. You see, the best planes tend to be the ones that get played the most often. So basically, if you've played the F8 for a day or two and just gotten at least something of a feel for the game mode, you should be familiar with most of the good planes. And also familiar with a lot of planes that you know are bad because they're commonly flown despite being bad. So if you're looking at a plane and you don't recognize it, that means that plane almost certainly sucks. And if it sucks, it almost certainly doesn't have flares. But even if it does have flares, the player flying is probably a bad player for picking it in the first place. So you should probably just shoot Abyssal at them anyways, because bad players are easy to kill. It doesn't matter how good their plane is. So if you ever see a kicker or whatever, you're like, huh, what's a kicker? Good question. A kick is a free kill for your E9D. That is the only relevant detail you need to know about that plane. I mean, there's a reason this video looks like steel clubbing, while also being, fun fact, the highest ever documented kill streak with this jet. Actually, maybe around like half my videos feature what was at least then the highest documented kill streak with whatever plane it happened to be flying. I would advertise that, but it'd be really tacky. I don't want to be the boy who cried world record. Alright, let's get a little bit of the maneuvers. If you want to rate fight someone, positioning is key. And I know I refer people to my position guide a lot, but I literally use this plane to make that guide, so it's pretty well tailored advice, and I also only have limited time in this video to explain stuff. So go watch that video and it'll show you exactly how to do that if you want to know how to do that. As for energy fighting and or the something in between energy and rate fighting, this plane has a great balance of acceleration, speed, and energy retention. This means you can really throw it around and line up shots, exactly like what I did in the A5C video. That's one viable way to use this jet. So if you see a big group of players, you can backflip around and then boom and zoom right through them with guns and missiles, and then potentially rate fight the stragglers. The key thing you want to keep in mind is that players will often become distracted or overwhelmed at this battle rating because it's their first time being thrown into the chaos of top tier air arcade, even though this is pretty mild as far as the chaos goes. So obviously this is a weak spot you should exploit. Not only can you use their confusion to get behind them easily, but you can in fact get them distracted or overwhelmed in the first place if you bait them into flying near your teammates. If they don't know how to keep track of multiple players being around them, then they're gonna die and you're probably gonna be one to kill them. You should exploit your surroundings to your advantage when flying this thing. Happy hunting. If you're unsure how to pay attention yourself, that's actually a really big topic. I'll link my guides playlist at the end of this video, and like I have a bunch of guides, but in the TLDR is that most of my guides will show you how to do like XYZ important skill, while also showing you how to pay attention while you are using that skill. However, the key thing to remember for this jet when you're watching those guides is that the faster you're going, the easier it is to pay attention. And this jet can go pretty fast for its battle rating. So if you keep your speed up as much as you can, your life will be a lot easier. Okay, let me knock off a few of the key points real quick. So there are 3 F8s in the game. There's one of them is French and it sucks. The other 2 are Americans. The American ones, the F8E and the F8U2, have one major difference. The F8E gets radar missiles. However, its radar missiles are mediocre and its radar flat out sucks. So I don't bother using the radar missiles. I just roll with the A9Ds on both planes, and that makes them essentially identical. The reason these jets are 2 steps apart in battle rating instead of 1, which they used to be, is because Gaijin re-tiered all the planes at battle rating 10 point or higher earlier this year, and the 2 F8s straddled the line of that cutoff, so one is over-tiered, one is under-tiered. This one I'm flying here is under-tiered. There is another closely related class of jets, the A7s. Those are based on F8s, yes, but they're very different and way worse for air-to-air combat. Do not think of them as the same plane. Also, I bring 10 chaff with me when I'm flying this F8, purely in case I run into a MiG-21 R13-300. You don't need much chaff to fight one of those, but you do definitely need some. And if there are any of those MiG-21s around, I will switch to using different buttons for flares and chaff. I'll just use them separately. However, if there aren't any of those MiG-21s around, the chaff doesn't matter, so I just spam the mixed countermeasures button, which basically is a flares only button, and then I have one less button to think about. If you go out of your way to give yourself less stuff to think about, then it's easier to pay attention to everything else. Now, at this point, my team is going to lose the game. I knew from early on in this match that this was going to happen. I mean, part of the reason I'm getting so many kills is that my teammates are my competition. My teammates are not very good. I did cap a few objectives myself to drag out the inevitable so I get more kills in, but I am not good enough to kill everyone and cap all of the objectives. I can only kill everyone and cap some of the objectives, alright? I'm not a magician. Now, I've also been up here long enough that I'm actually about to run out of gas. So I go ahead and light my afterburner, and I go chase down this AV-8 and kill him. This does completely run me out of gas. I don't have any more gas, but it also gets me out of the soup. And this game will end before any of the enemy players will actually have enough time to chase me down to finally get a revenge kill. And it will definitely end long before physics crashes my plane into the ground, so I'm safe. And I also just go ahead and shoot down this A4E as well while I'm just gliding around, and that earns me a cheeky overtime kill. Anyways, thanks for watching. Here's a link to my guides. Like and comment to feed the algorithm, and subscribe if you don't want to remember how to spell AOLIPay next time you want to watch one of my videos.